Hello and welcome to another episode of IT Pro TV. I'm your host Mike Broderick, and with me today is Mr. Sean Oriano. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing awesome. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. We got another exciting episode coming your way. We're doing our Kali Linux series, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about configuring. In a previous episode, we saw how to get Kali installed. Now that we've got it installed, what's our next step, right? We got to make sure we set it up properly so we can actually use it. So let's just dive right in and learn how to configure Kali Linux.
Yes, there's a number of things that you're going to be doing at this point, and we're going to show you some of these things that you're going to be doing. Some of them are just kind of just personalization type stuff. Other things are things that you do need to do, or at least consider doing. And so we're definitely going to go through the ones that you really need to seriously look at doing to make sure that they're everything's all squared away. A couple things I like to do, right from the get-go, and I'll just put it up here on my screen while I'm talking about it. Is I've got this is my Kali install, so you can see the whole desktop, everything there. I've logged in and all that, so we're in good shape. Well, first thing I want to do is make sure I have everything up to date, and if there's any, see if there's any upgrades. The way you do that, or one of the ways you can do it, there's always more than one way to do things in just about any product. But what I can do here is I'm going to click on my button for my console or terminal, up here, and remember where that is. I'm just telling you right now. Remember where that is, because you will be spending time there. So you can see that I am logged into this. And by the way, why this is up here. If you're not already aware of this, if you install the live version of Kali, what's going to happen is that your username is going to be root and your password is going to be tour, so the opposite of root, just flipping it around. If you installed it on your hard drive, your password will be whatever you set it as during the installation. The username will still be root. Now, could you change that? Yeah, you can change it if you want. I would seriously consider seeing if you want to change that. If we want to change that, I haven't. In training environment, don't really care at this point. But best practice would say you'd consider changing that at some time down the road.
Kind of like in a Windows environment, we don't recommend logging on as the domain admin all the time, because if something was to happen, something gets compromised, then you're putting your system at risk. So probably not the best idea to run as root, but in a training environment or when you're just learning it in your little sandbox, that's okay.
All
right.
So the way things we can do here is we can do the first thing is to see if we got any. We can do either one. We can see if there's an upgrade available and see if there's any updates available. And so doing one versus the other, you can do apt-get at the command line and then do update. And here's the thing, some of you might already be screaming at this, and that's fine. I'm going to point this out just in case. It's okay. It didn't really say there's any things that was missing. Just in case you're doing this on your system and it throws any errors or anything out, notice the way I did this. It says apt-get update. So I brought that up at the bottom. You might very well have to put one of these in front of it. Sudo. Do it as escalated privileges. If you do it that way and you hit enter, it will ask you for credentials of the person that has administrator privileges or super user privileges, whatever. So it'll perform just that action with those elevated privileges. So in this case, if I run it sudo apt-get update, it's doing the same type of thing. I don't expect it to make any changes, and it didn't. I already have those privileges. The other thing you can do is you can do apt-get, and you can do an upgrade, and it will do this stuff. And look what this one did. This one went through and said, well, it's saying that it would use another 40 megs of additional disk space will be used if I choose to do this upgrade. So, and if you go through that list, you can see there's a good number of things that are being updated, or upgraded rather. So, I might just want to go ahead and say yes, and let it do its thing and bring the stuff down you onto the system and get it back up. Back up to date. So I like to do this right when I set up the system initially, just to make sure everything's all squared away and I'm not working with a system that might be a little bit out of date. And do expect that, by the way. Do expect when you download these ISOs off of wherever, or download an appliance off of somewhere, those are something that was made in the past. We know they were made in the past. So the question is just how far back in the past were they made? These things could have been sitting there for months and months and months and months. And so you just have to do the updates to it to make sure that they get what they need. Now, a lot of the updates will get applied if you're doing an installation to a hard drive or a virtual machine like I have here. A lot of those updates will get applied during the installation. And you'll notice during the installation, it asks you, like you saw on the previous segment, you saw it had network mirror on there and was saying, do you want me to configure a network mirror? And what's your proxy to get out if you have one? It was going to go look for updates. And so it did. It went ahead and looked for updates. It didn't look for an upgrade at all. So in this case, I did the updates. It said didn't find anything that was of any use, so done. In the case of an upgrade, it very clearly said, yeah, it's not up to date on the upgrade side. So it's upgrading various products and libraries in there and making sure those things are all brought into compliance, or at least up to the current version. Now, depending on your speed and how long ago this was had stuff done to it, this could take a while. This may be that point in time where I'm like looking at it saying, okay, tap tap tap, and and go ahead and go out and get dinner or something like that.
Yeah.
It might very well be. I've seen that happen. Where you pack a lunch if you're going to watch it, but hopefully you're not that far out of date. If you're that far out of date, then it might just be easier just to download a newer version of an ISO, or heck, if that's the only one, you're just going to have to kind of just grin and bear it, or whatever they say. Do that and put up with that.
Yeah, get it done once, and once you've got it done, you don't have to worry about it. Hopefully for a while. I was trying to find on their website there. I know that one of the things, there's a lot of different packages in Kali, and they do have a nice link on their webpage where it'll show you the latest versions of all the different packages. So if you wanted to kind of compare and look to see that that apt-get update or that apt-get upgrade pretty much takes care of it if you just want to get all of them.
Yes, I would just go ahead and make it a best practice of doing that, of doing that sort of thing when you get in, so you can make sure that's being done. And it will update from all the repositories that it's aware of, and you can add them to there. You can add repositories so it looks in other places for other tools, and there are plenty of other repositories out there that you can drop in for whatever reason. There's so many of them out there. I'd also point out that they do this sort of thing on just about every version of Linux out there. There's an update/upgrade process. Usually you're flagged anyway if something is out of date. It'll tell you, hey, there's so many updates on there. And it's I know when I was using Ubuntu all the time, I would seem to get notifications. Sometimes it seemed like every day. It was just like, oh, there's some more updates. You're like, okay, calm down, guys. Just get a few of these lined up before we go ahead and do this. But usually they're pretty good about keeping you up to date anyway. And it will also tell you if there's an upgrade available, and so you can apply those as appropriate. Be aware though, if you do an upgrade or an update, you're gonna want to, if you've customized anything. I mean, one tool I think about would be Kismet. Kismet is if you don't recall, Kismet's a utility for sniffing and working with wireless devices. Well, Kismet, you have to customize the configuration files for that to get that thing to work. Well, if you went through and spent all that time customizing and then you apply updates, it can very well overwrite and dump your configuration file, and now you've got a tool that won't work. So what do you got to do? You got to go through and redo that. So be careful if you customize stuff, because that could be problematic. I would say if your configuration file, stuff like that you've customized, put them on a flash drive. They're not going to be that big, and it keeps you from having a lot of needless frustration down the road. That's all I'm saying. I've been there. I
Sounds
don't
like
want you
somebody
guys to have to
speaking
go
from
there.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I got into it, and you know what? I did it multiple times too. It's like you know, happening once is like, okay, it happened once. Don't do that again. Happening multiple times, it's like you're just being stupid. I'll admit it. I was like, I don't believe I did that again. I really
Right.
don't.
Gotta remember to put those on a portable drive. Gotta do that.
Yeah, I just no, not this again. So yeah, just be prepared, you know, for that. You know, so we've got those things installed, and it's actually even on my system, it's still doing the upgrade of things. It does take a little time, so you can see it's still going. I can see some of the tools getting updated in there, which is great. You know, it's doing that. So usually what you do is just go ahead and, you like I said, you let that run. Just let it run and go through its business, and when it's done, then you can move on to the next stuff. So what would be some other stuff that you might configure at this point? Network could
Yeah, I
be.
was going to say, I don't know if you want to try to do anything with your updates going right now, but what if I went and did apt-get update and I didn't have any network connectivity? It's probably not going to be able to do those updates, right?
Yeah, it just won't work. It'll just stop right there. So if you need to configure your network adapters for whatever reason, you can do that fairly easily, and it all depends. Just I should say fairly easily, depending on what your kind of approach is. Much like our other operating systems, we have a way to do that right through the GUI, and I'll just go ahead and walk through with it here on screen. In fact, I will, to get rid of the distractions, I will minimize that. So I will go over to System Tools and Preferences, and you can see in here it's got network connections. Now, my network connection, since it's in a virtual machine, I really don't have anything listed here. If this was on a physical machine, I could go and put in my additional network adapters on here, and put in whatever I need to. I could name my connections, put my IP addresses in here as appropriate. To say, okay, I'm going to manually put it in and drop all that stuff in, and configure it just this. Really, this stuff here may look a little different, but it's really no different than what you do in Windows or any other operating system. It's the exact same type of thing. You're just going to drop the stuff in the appropriate places, and boom, you're done. So that's really what we have there. Other things that are worth mentioning, the cloned MAC address. You can dupe a MAC address on here if you have some reason to do that. And we've already seen that, in our CEH, we saw there's reasons why we would do that. Just to either spoof a MAC address, or or if we just need to look like something else, we can do that. So you would actually do that here. Most of the other stuff in here, though, you really don't have to do much with. You can just leave it as it is. This MTU, for example, that's one that typically you don't have to mess with at all. You can leave it as it is, because that's the maximum transmittable unit size, the size of chunks that can go across the network. Usually just let it go ahead and take care of that itself. But in some cases, you might very well want to adjust that, because it might be optimizing it for your specific environment. So we have, you can see for wired, we have wireless over here. If we do wireless, it's going to have stuff specific to wireless in there. So we just go right on down the line and configure what you need to, and name them, and you're pretty much done once you've gone through. And then of course you can see the mobile stuff. I don't know if how often you might be using these things, but if you're going to be doing pen testing over these types of mechanisms, mobile broadband or VPN or anything like that, then boom, there you go. You can go ahead and configure that right there. So that's one way you can do it.
That was all under System Tools, Preferences, and then Network
Connections.
Network Connections. Okay.
And then we also have, you can do it typically over here too by clicking on the computers. You can go over here, right click, and say, edit connections. That usually brings you to the same spot. If you want to do that. You also notice okay, well, that's going to the virtual machine. But if I had if I had actually put in my network adapters, entered them directly into this, I could get the same status information I do through a Windows machine, telling me information that's gone back and forth. You can do all that. So it's got quite a bit. You can also do this through the command line. You can access, your stuff through the command line. Okay, it's still finishing off there. So let me open up this. If you want to look at the command line, you can do if config, and boom, it brings this information right up here. Remember, if this is your first time using Linux, or you're stuck in a Windows world most of the time, be prepared for going tap tap. Isn't working? You're getting yeah. You probably spelled IP config.
Why isn't
Everyone
IP
does it.
config working? I don't understand. Yeah. So definitely go check out if you're having any trouble at all. Another selfless plug there. Go check out our Linux Plus episodes. Those will get you through those basics on that Linux stuff. So, but just like in Windows, so I've got to somehow configure my TCP/IP settings so I can communicate on the network. I can use my GUI through those through my system menu there, my preferences. I could jump up there with those little computer icon and get there. And then of course I've got my command prompt, and ifconfig is the command to display it. Same command to modify it.
Yeah, you could go through there and you can use ifconfig to modify it and store the settings there too, if you so choose. Not a problem. Just some more typing if you want to do it that way. Some other stuff to note while we're in here is if you look closely at this, you can see that. In fact, I'm just going to look at the top one. I mean, the bottom chunk in there that says LO off to the side, off to the left-hand side. That's the loopback. You can see it's the loopback address. We can see the INET address into the 127.0.0.1. There's no special meaning. That's different from any other place you've seen it. It's the loopback. But the one up top, the ETH0, that's represents the network adapter to it's using to communicate off the system. If you have multiple network adapters, it's going to say ETH0, ETH1, ETH2. It's going to go that way. Note the way I just said that. It's going to go S0, S1, it's going to start at 0. So if you have one adapter on the system, like I got here, that LO is a virtual deal. That S0, that's one connection. It's set up as 0. It's a 0 indexed.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a 0 index numbering system. So when you see 0, that's your first one. If you see number 1, that's your second network adapter then.
Exactly. Yeah. So pay very, very, very close attention to that. That's a big gotcha. So if you're taking notes, now would be a good time to do it, because when you start doing stuff later on that we are going to be going through, showing you some of these tools, and you pop the command line in, they'll have you'll type something in, like we'll look at one called P0F. It'll ask, what interface do you want me to monitor on? And so you type in the command, and then you put a switch in there, -I, which is -I usually in most cases means interface, and a lot of these tools anyway, they kind of standardized on that. So you put -I, and if you want to listen on, you have two network adapters and you want to listen on it, you better make sure if it's ETH0 or ETH1, or if it's a WLAN, that's a wireless adapter, and that'll be WLAN 0, WLAN 1, same deal. So pay very, 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 very close attention to that, because it will get you. So if you're ever looking at the syntax for a command and it says interface name, that's what they're referring to, is right there. So just if you're not sure which one you're looking for, ifconfig, and boom, look at the interfaces, and you'll see everything you need to right there.
Nice. All right, so we're getting that network adapter configured so that we can connect to whatever network we're on. I mean, obviously it supports DHCP. You can statically map that guy. You got several different ways you can go in there and do that. And then at that point, we can go out and do our apt-get and our updates and our apt-get and our upgrade. Now for us, Sean, I know we had a question in the chat room there. I think who was asking? Ben was asking about using a distro name in that update command, because we're running it from within there. We don't have to supply that, or there's some other.
You shouldn't have to here. You shouldn't have to use the distro. That should work with that apt-get. Should just work just fine. distro name or anything, no, I wouldn't bother putting it in there. But I see, Michael put in something a little different on there with the disk dash upgrade. I mean, in some cases you might have to put that in. I haven't had to for here, and nor have I had to on Ubuntu either.
Gotcha.
But some cases, yeah, you would have to put it in, and usually it's pretty specific. You know that you need to put it in.
Gotcha. All right, well, what else are we going to configure then? We've got our networking, which obviously is a big part of it. Otherwise, we're not doing much pen testing or forensics or anything. So now we're connected to the network. What's next on our list of things I need to do to get this guy ready to go?
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of other things. So let's take a look at the interface again a bit. Things we have in here. First of all, just note this: we have the web browser sitting up here. Well, the web browser that we've got that's used in just about every place and every demo is Iceweasel. That's the one that we use for here. Yes, you can get Firefox for this if you really want to go ahead and use it, and some people do. No harm, no foul. I personally like keeping a couple web browsers on a system just as a safeguard. Here on my host system, I mean, if you're looking down there at the bottom next to my start menu, you see the folder, and then you see the next 4 icons. Those are all web browsers. And
You like to have a choice.
yeah. And notice there's no Internet Explorer. I evicted that really quick. It was gone. I went right down the list, the add remove features. Bang, 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 done. We're get out of here. There's that. Now, if you want to add or remove anything from it, the way you do that is, again, you go to System Tools, and we have over here we have Preferences, and you can see under well, actually not I should say right underneath Preferences, Add Remove Software. So it's telling you here you're running as a privileged user. It's letting you know that yeah, you've got these escalated privileges. They're telling you because you could potentially do damage, but today we don't care. So anyway, and I would say if you're in here working with Kaylee, to be honest, this does not mean you're getting a blank check for this. What I'm going to tell you is that if you are using something like Kaylee, I'm going to assume that you probably should know your stuff as far as the dangers of working as a privileged user. But that still doesn't mean just go ahead and run it all the time because, hey, Sean said we should know our stuff. Yeah, I said, yeah, you probably do, but a lot of stuff goes on, you get distracted, you make a mistake, and something happens. But right here, we're not really too worried about it.
Yeah, this is not your install to be surfing the web and to be watching YouTube videos and to be downloading torrents and things like that, right? And if you're logged on as root doing any of those, you're putting yourself at a big risk. So if you are, don't, or create another user, give it just basic privileges, and then use your sudo commands or what have you when you need them. But yeah, at this point, you guys should know. Don't be running root all the time.
Yeah. So here we're totally fine with it. But yeah, there's your warning. But what we have here is we have under this add remove software. You can see there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. You can search for different packages in here and go ahead and download stuff on here as you see fit. And if you don't see something on here that you want, you actually can go into the product and add a new repository. So if you find a repository, it has something that you want that's not included here, then yeah, you can go find out what the repository is for it if it's compatible, and then just drop it right in. And really, anything that's compatible with Debian should work in here. So that's the thing to remember. If it works with Debian, it's gonna work in here. Heck, if it works with Ubuntu, it should work in here. Ubuntu is based off of Debian way back as well. And I'll tell you, by the way, you're going to go through. If you poke through this add remove software at some point and poke through what's in the repositories. First, that's a major task if you're going to browse through it because there's so much stuff in there. But you'll find some stuff there, being like, who's using that? So yeah, there's some interesting stuff in there.
This is listing everything. If any of those were already installed, there'd be a little check mark and the box little icon would be open. Those ones with the closed boxes, those were more tools. Not that there's not enough already compiled into Kali, but you can actually go get more. So there's very specific ones, like I'm looking at one here, partition editor for Acorn RISC OS machines. I saw some BlackBerry options in there, so you can browse through there and see what they've got. Maybe they've got something that you need that's not part of the default distro that you can just download and work with.
Yeah, there's so many that you can add in there. It just I don't know if I'd browse through the whole thing just aimlessly. I've done that a few times, typed in some random keywords and subject areas I was interested in, like security or stuff like that, and brought up some things. But you're probably just not going to wander aimlessly looking for something. Other things worth mentioning. There's the other way you can do a software update. Over here, so that update we did at the command line, you also can do it here. Remember I said there's more than one way to do most stuff. So I did it there. You're going to notice in this over all the episodes we do here for this and all the examples we do, I'm probably going to do quite a bit in command line over doing GUI, or I'm going to emphasize command line before I go into GUI, just because it's something that you need to get more familiar with. So I'm kind of trying to drill that into you. That's my way of doing it. But in some cases, there's not a GUI option unless you were gonna write one yourself. It just doesn't exist. So but that's the thing. Other stuff you have that you can customize. You can see we have under preferences. You can do all sorts of interesting things. Up here to customize how things work. This is just look and feel. This doesn't really impact the security of it at all. If you want to change it, you want to make it look prettier or whatever, you got that. Some people want to do that, and okay, who am I to say you can't do it? But there it is if you want to change and start tweaking things in there, you can definitely do that all day. But there you go. You might explore some of the other stuff that's here on this System Tools menu, the administration and preferences. I will tell you, by the way, when you install this physically on some hardware, there will be now and then be some changes in what's available on the menu. Usually what it is you'll see all the stuff you have here, but you'll also see some, you could see some things that are specific to that hardware, because it might actually recognize something with that hardware. I've installed stuff on IBM and Lenovo machines, and it's picked up specific things with that, and for like the hotkeys or something, it installed something with that, and so it wasn't something that you'd see someplace else. So don't be surprised, if you see that. As far as we're concerned, things that are of real interest to us is we also have, I guess I should point out this one, the system settings. This one you might find yourself going into. This could be a usability issue. This one, why I say it's usability issues, yeah, you do have the network stuff in there. There's just another way of looking at the network. But we also have, you can see adjusting power, the mouse. If you have issues with that. You can see we have all sorts of things. The date and time, that's going to be an important one, especially if you're using this for forensic purposes. And we went through that in the DFI course, that you need to make sure your time and date's accurate. So that would be the same thing here with pen testing. Make sure it's accurate. So just in case it doesn't pick it up. And I have been in these situations where it definitely is not picked up the right time at all. Because it's trying to pick it up off the BIOS or someplace in the system like that, and doesn't get it right. I mean, you can look at my system on here. It says it's it's June 28th. It's Sunday. I'm not even here yet. So it says 11:53 p.m. My computer down in the bottom right says 12:44 p.m. because it's on California time. So. Yeah, that's a mess.
Issue, yeah.
It's really there's really a big mess here. So you'd want to make sure that those things are accurate and correct when you're doing this, because it could be, like I said, pulling that off the BIOS. And if you choose a time zone when you're installing Kali, it's just going to apply. It could apply offsets to that, and the offsets may not be correct. You might have Pacific time, and you say, oh well, I'm in Pacific time, so. And okay, well the BIOS is set to that already. You set the Kali to Pacific time. What Kali might do is say the stuff that's in the BIOS, it might think that's Greenwich time, and then offset from that, and now you get some weird time off of that. I've seen it happen. Just be prepared that you might have to tweak that. I mean, this is a definite case where you'd have to tweak that. Other stuff that's of interest, there's their user accounts. I'm not really going to mess with that too much in what we're doing here. Because that's covered in the Linux course, and I also don't need to worry about for what I do here. But if you want to have multiple users or anything like that, that's where you go. So you can see we've got a lot of stuff happening here if you need to go in there. So that's the system settings. As far as what we're going to be looking at, you can see on the menu we have all these things going on all over the place. For the most part, the stuff we're going to be looking at is going to be right here under the Kali Linux menu. The Kali Linux menu, as you saw when we did our first segment, and I was scrolling through it, it kept expanding out, expanding out. It's those tools in there are a combination of tools that are GUI based as well as tools that are command line based. Don't be surprised if you start going through this and look at, there's DNS analysis. I'm going to choose DNS enumerate off here. I click on it, and all of a sudden, boom, it opens up a shell, and there's all the options for you.
Wait, where's my GUI?
Yeah, it's just like, oh, hey, I'll keep track of them for you, but you're still going to have to go into the GUI and do it. So yeah, you're gonna be spending some time, considerable amount of time doing stuff, at the GUI. I would tell you right now, if you're not a Linux person or you're not familiar with all these commands, get used to command name space -- help. Get used to it. So that's going to be a very important and friendly thing for you. And hey, nothing wrong with that. I don't remember all every little switch, everything in there. It's impossible, to really do that. So I just make it easy on myself. It's like some of them I know off the top of my head. Other ones, I'll just go through and go, yep, I want that, and that, and boom, put it together and go on with it. So, but just if you remember the -- help, that's going to be a big assistance to you.
All right, well, Sean, a lot of good information there. We've got Kali installed. In this episode, we saw how to, do our updates to make sure, because who knows when that distro was compiled. So we downloaded that ISO, got it installed. But the first thing we need to do is check and see if we've got any updates for that, and possibly even upgrades to certain programs or other things that are compiled in there. So we did our apt-get update. We did our apt-get upgrade. We also saw how to configure that network adapter. Going to be very important to make sure our machine is on the right network so that we can communicate with the rest of the network and have some fun with Kali. So a lot of good info there. At this point, we've got a machine that's up and running and it's on the network, and now we're just ready to dive in and start playing with a lot of those different tools. Well, I kid. There's some more stuff we got to go over, but looking at the clock, Sean, we are about out of time. So anything else we want to throw in on our configuring Kali Linux?
No, I think we saw a lot of, we're off to a good start here. We saw a lot of good stuff. And just a little thing to add to the end of this is, one of the cool things about Kali is that, you can configure these network adapters and configure hardware and stuff like that. Typically, if you've got pretty normal normal hardware, I guess say, it's stuff that's not exotic is the way I used to put it, or legacy even. It's probably just going to install on your stuff and not need much in the way of tweaking. But with that being said, don't be surprised if you do, and search out the resources online for it. I know for ThinkPads, every notebook I have is a ThinkPad. ThinkPads have their own thing called a ThinkWiki that the community put together that will tell you, it's got specs on every ThinkPad that's out there. And it tells you how the different versions of Linux will act on it and what you're going to need to do post-installation. To activate touchpads, activate the multi-touch on a touch screen, stuff like that. It'll tell you that. And they have those types of things for every piece of hardware out there. So if something doesn't work the right way, like your Bluetooth or wireless or something else, don't lose heart, don't get upset or anything else. Go search those resources out to see if it's something that you can solve. Again, because in most cases, one of the cool things about the Linux community is if you ask, they're going to help you.
That's exactly what I was going to say. One of the great things about Linux is it's a very community-driven operating system, and Kali is no exception. They got great documentation, they've got great forums, and there's always somebody you can ask if you run into trouble or have something that's not working the way you want it to work. All right, Sean, well, that's about it for this episode, so we're going to call it, and Hope you guys enjoyed this show. But signing off for IT Pro TV, I'm Mike Roderick,
And I'm Sean Ariano.
and we'll see you next time.